Tonight, we open an ancient map, not of lands, but of the soul, the 7 deadly sins and their 7 virtues. From spiritual despair to philosophical awakening, human beings rarely destroy themselves through ignorance. More often, they do so through excess of desire, identity, emotion, or attachment. Long before psychology gave names to ego, projection, or repression, spiritual thinkers noticed something unsettling. Suffering follows patterns, not random ones, but predictable distortions of otherwise natural human drives. The 7 deadly sins were never meant as threats or tools of control. They were observations, attempts to name what happens when instinct operates without awareness, and opposite each sin, a virtue was placed, not as moral perfection, but as balance, not suppression, but correction. This is not a story about good and evil. It is a study of imbalance and integration. Pride stands first because it feeds every other distortion. Pride is not confidence, ambition, or self-respect. It is identification, the moment you mistake your perspective for reality itself. Augustine of Hippo described pride as love of self taken too far, where the self no longer participates in the world but demands the world revolve around it. When pride dominates, disagreement feels like an attack, and limitation feels like an insult. Arthur Schopenhauer believed suffering begins when the will demands satisfaction as a right, rather than a contingency. Pride narrows perception. It isolates. It transforms relationships into hierarchies. Humility corrects this, not by diminishing the self, but by restoring proportion. Thomas Aquinas defined humility simply as truth about oneself. Nothing more, nothing less. Humility allows learning, dialogue, and growth. Where pride insists I must be right, humility asks, what am I not seeing? From pride flows envy, the pain of comparison. Envy does not want what another has. It resents that they have it at all. Aristotle warned that envy corrodes the soul quietly because it shifts attention outward instead of inward. Your worth becomes measured against another life. Modern psychology echoes this insight. Envy intensifies when identity is unstable and meaning is absent. Comparison rushes in where purpose is missing. Kindness dissolves envy by changing orientation. It is not politeness or a moral performance. It is freedom from comparison. In Buddhist thought, this is called joy in another's joy. The recognition that another person's success does not diminish your own existence. Kindness restores a sense of shared reality. It reminds the psyche that life is not a zero-sum contest. Wrath emerges when expectation collides with reality. It feels righteous because it is fueled by certainty. Seneca described anger as a temporary madness, intense, convincing, and destructive. Wrath externalizes responsibility. It insists peace is impossible until the world changes. It confuses emotional intensity with moral clarity. Patience reverses this logic. Epictetus taught that freedom lies not in events, but in our judgments about them. Patience is not weakness or passivity. It is sovereignty, the ability to feel without surrendering control to impulse. Patience introduces a pause between stimulus and response. In that pause, choice appears. Wrath reacts. Patience governs. Sloth is not laziness of the body. It is avoidance of meaning. Early Christian monks called it acedia, a spiritual paralysis marked by restlessness, boredom, and disengagement. Sloth postpones life indefinitely. Tomorrow becomes a hiding place. The soul knows what must be done, yet resists movement. Viktor Frankl observed that lack of meaning destroys people faster than suffering itself. When purpose dissolves, energy collapses. Diligence restores movement, not through intensity or obsession, but through consistency. It is fidelity to responsibility even when motivation fades. Meaning does not reveal itself through endless reflection. It emerges through action. Greed is fear disguised as ambition. It is not hunger, but insecurity, the belief that existence will never be enough. Greed accumulates without satisfaction because it is not seeking possession, but safety. Thomas Hobbes believed human desire expands endlessly unless restrained. Mystics disagreed. Meister Eckhart warned that attachment binds the soul to anxiety. The tighter you cling, the more fragile everything becomes. Generosity breaks the illusion of scarcity. not symbolically, but psychologically. When you give freely, you demonstrate trust in reality itself. You loosen fear's grip on the mind. Generosity reorients the soul away from accumulation and toward participation. Gluttony is excess without awareness. It is consumption used as anesthesia. Food, pleasure, entertainment, information, anything can become gluttonous when used to avoid presence. Epicurus argued that pleasure requires moderation to remain pleasure. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Overstimulation dulls satisfaction. When everything is consumed compulsively, nothing is enjoyed fully. Temperance restores sensitivity. It is not denial, but discernment. It allows enjoyment without addiction, pleasure without loss of control. True pleasure is conscious. Without temperance, excess numbs. With it, even simplicity becomes rich. Lust is desire stripped of depth. It reduces connection to sensation and replaces encounter with consumption. Carl Jung warned that unconscious desire turns people into projections rather than individuals. Lust consumes. Chastity encounters. Chastity does not deny desire. It integrates it. It insists that intimacy requires presence, not possession. It treats desire as something to be honored, not exploited. What emerges from this pattern is not condemnation, but instruction. The sins were never meant to be eliminated. They were meant to be understood. Each sin reveals imbalance. Each virtue restores orientation. The goal was never purity. It was coherence. Light does not erase shadow, it integrates it. When understood, the shadow becomes wisdom rather than sabotage. If you've stayed until the end, thank you. This was my first longer video, and I didn't want to rush it. These ideas take time to hear, to question, and to live with. If something here resonated, consider following Codex Nox. This project is still unfolding. So am I. See you in the next chapter.